Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In this first part of our fourth lecture on Descriptive Statistics and Islamic Approach, we revisit the issue of why we are using these terms Islamic Approach for this course. First, let us list the objections to the idea of using these words. Let me say that it is entirely possible to present all of the statistical and technical material within a secular materialistic framework which is aligned with current modern worldviews, aligned with no views regarding God, existence or non-existence. It is also possible to take this whole material and align it with Christianity, with Hinduism, with Buddhism, with Confucianism, or with any other philosophical or cultural tradition. So again, then this makes the problem even more difficult. Why bring in any religion? Why not just work with the neutral framework in which we don't make any mention of these concepts? Another problem is that if I use Islamic approach, I'm restricting the audience to Muslims. As I'll explain, this is not really true, but there is some restriction that is being made. And finally, it seems to be dishonest. We are taking a intellectual tradition from European innovations, and we are putting a Islamic label and clothing on it. We are packaging modern mathematics within ancient frameworks of thought. So all of this seems to be strong objections to the idea of using an Islamic approach to the discussion of statistics. So the first point to understand is that this is not an option of choosing between no religion and religion, because modern secular thought is itself a very strong religion. And so it is a question of choosing between religion X or Y or Z. There is no option of not taking into account any religion, which is this is why we are having problems, because modern secular thought presents itself as a neutral, unbiased and objective way of looking at the world, but it is not. Modern secular thinking is based on a very strong set of values, and these values are already in conflict with Islam. So a Muslim cannot really teach within a modern framework, because modern framework says that religions are irrelevant, and this is not compatible with Islam. In the subject matter area, it is claimed that when we study statistics, we are doing objective analysis, but in fact, this analysis is full of subjectivity and full of moral values. And so this appearance of objectivity and this claim of neutrality leads to deception. It creates lies, and that's why we are able to lie with statistics, and that's why economic hitmen can come into existence, because they create statistical analysis which pretends to be objective but is actually full of values. And for example, we studied that college rankings are subjective, student evaluations are objective. The most important subjective evaluation is the use of the GNP measure for wealth, which drives policy all over the world without any recognition that this is a particular subjective method of defining prosperity for the people. And this illusion of objectivity has caused a lot of damage. When we approach the study of any subject at all, the first question we must ask is why? What is the purpose of our acquiring this knowledge? What is the purpose of studying statistics? This question cannot be bypassed. But in a conventional approach, no discussion is made of this question. But this is not because this question is ignored. Actually, the purpose is hidden. And this is why it is necessary to bring it out. Because when we ask about the purpose of study, before that we must ask about the purpose of life. Who am I? What is my goal in life? And how will this knowledge help me achieve this goal? These are essential questions, and these questions cannot be bypassed. You cannot say that I will not answer them. Now, all knowledge comes from life experience, either my own life experience or the life experience of somebody else, some living person. So ultimately, all knowledge is subjective. It comes from human beings. It can be distilled into forms which don't give any reflection of that life experience, but ultimately it derives from life experience. So the question is, when we study any subject, what does it relate to my life experience? How can this knowledge help me improve my life and improve my life experience and understand my life experience better? This is the key question which is never asked in a modern approach. And so we must ask, how can you avoid answering, how can you avoid raising this question, discussing it and answering it in the conventional approach? Because this is so essential, this is so central, this is so important. We must know the answers to these before we study any subject. These questions are the wisdom of the ancients. Socrates said that to know yourself is the beginning of wisdom. A life unexamined is not worth living. So education is understanding who we are, what the purpose of our life is, and what makes life worth living. Aristotle said that knowledge is really about knowing why of things, and why can be broken down into four different whys, four different causes. So if you consider a table in a living room, you can ask, what is the material cause? So the material cause is the wood, which is the material used to create the table. Then there's called the formal cause, form coming from form here, or design. So we have the wood, but we design it with a surface, flat surface, and with four legs so that the flat surface is raised up. So that is the design or the formal cause. The efficient cause is the agent which brings this about, the carpenter who cut the wood into the right shape and nailed the pieces so as to create the table. And then there is the final cause, the fourth one, most important. Why did this happen? What was the purpose of creating the table? So without understanding all of these causes, we do not have knowledge. And it should be clear that a standard study of statistics does not delve into these four issues at all. So this wisdom of the ancients has been forgotten by the moderns. So why did the moderns forget, and why do they not discuss purpose of life, purpose of study? Because there is a hidden assumption, not discussed explicitly, that there is no purpose. Bertrand Russell explains this as one of the leading atheists of the 20th century, and he explains this very clearly, that man was created by an accident, that what we feel, what we hope, what we fear, what we love, what we believe, it's all an accident. There is nothing we can do, no big actions, no heroism, no courage that can preserve our life, that will have a lasting impact. Everything will die, and all of our life and all of our effort and all of our knowledge, everything is meaningless. So Islam is very strongly opposed to this idea that life is meaningless. Quran says that, does man think he was created without purpose? No, we have been created for a purpose. And in fact, this purpose is described. Allah Ta'ala created death and life as a trial for us to see which of us can do the best of the deeds. So the purpose of our life is to do the best deeds. We have been only created for worship. So the question is, for an Islamic approach, is how can we study statistics so that it becomes an act of worship? This is required. This is not optional for us as Muslims. So as Muslims, we have no option but to study statistics via an Islamic approach. If Islamic civilization had not been completely demoralized, this would have happened naturally. But as the prophecy goes, Islam came as a stranger and will become a stranger. So today, even the Muslims are in doubt about what an Islamic approach is and how to create it. And so this requires a great effort to create a new approach to statistics. So we reject the modern idea that life is meaningless. Now, what is the meaning of life? What is the purpose? On this issue, Islam takes a very specific and particular approach. Other philosophies and other religions take other views about what is the purpose of life. So we can step back one stage and we can say, oh, all right, so we don't insist, we don't force students to accept the Islamic view of purpose, but we must insist that the purpose question should be brought out. You must discuss it. And even if you say that life is meaningless, you must do so after discussion, after thinking, after argument. These questions of purpose are very closely related to identity. Who am I? How can I approach the study of statistics so that it helps my life experiences and it helps me learn who I am? The Islamic approach has a clear answer. We acquire knowledge to recognize the signs of God around us, to recognize God himself, and recognizing the inner signs within me, my own identity, is a way to recognize God. Allah Ta'ala is hidden in the wonders of the world around us, the external world, and also hidden in the wonders which are inside us. And the best of deeds is defined to be one of the ways that we can achieve this is to serve mankind purely for the sake of love of Allah, without intention of fame, popularity, recognition, reward, and thanks. So when we do this, then we can convert the study of statistics into the best of deeds according to the Islamic point of view. But we can make room for others by saying that those who who have not found a purpose, they are free to search for a purpose. They can ask these questions. How can I lead a meaningful life? Now, the secular approach says that this is impossible. So we don't agree with that. That's why we have to reject the secular modern approach. We say that, okay, you can search for meaning. You can search for your identity. You can try to look for what is the hidden potential within your soul that I can bring out. What is it that I should try to learn excellence in? Which direction? Every human being has huge capabilities in many directions. So which is the direction in which these capabilities should be developed? What should be my priorities in life? And I think that it is a crime to teach students subjects knowledge without discussing these questions, because these questions determine what my life will be and what your life will be. So the standard approach is very, very harmful because it bypasses these essential questions. So to conclude this lecture, we recognize that purpose is missing from the standard approach. Islam gives us a clear-cut answer about purpose. If we invoke purpose, then the subject matter itself changes. We cannot study numbers in abstract. We cannot study theories without studying what the theory is about, without the context. Statistics is actually based on creating narratives supported by numbers, arguments to persuade people to act in one way and in another way. But this central role of narrative is now receiving some recognition in the mainstream literature, but it is not recognized by conventional approach. In order to do good rhetoric, in order to use numbers to persuade, we must study the numbers within the context from which they originate. And this strongly differentiates a purposeful Islamic approach from the standard approach, or any approach which takes purpose of life into account from the modern approach. So this is why we are insisting on an Islamic approach for Muslim teachers and for Muslim audiences.